Well,
Yeah,
greetings everyone today as we get to hear from Amber Ford with Green Bean Coffee. And so thank you, Amber, for creating some time for us in your busy schedule to connect. We do appreciate that.
absolutely. Thanks for the invite.
Well, let's just start out by hearing a bit about you personally and then, professionally, a bit about your company.
My name is Amber Ford. I'm born and raised here in Omaha, Nebraska. So I've lived here my whole life. Married, got a 22-year-old that's living in Missouri that just graduated from college and started his first big kid job. So a proud mama. I have been in coffee for 12 years. Started with another company several years ago, and I came onto Green Beans in the summer of 2015. They've been open for about 8 months. I came in as their manager at our Millard location. And then in 2021, we expanded and opened the Bellevue location, drive-through only. And then in 2023, February of this year, we finally opened the entire lobby down at Bellevue. So we have two stores, one off of 167th and Harrison in Millard, and the other one off of 36th and 370 in Bellevue. I didn't actually start the company. John Severs and his wife, Angela Severs. Angela's the actual owner. She is a full-time counselor in the Millard Public School District. So she is living her passion. John was a 26-year Air Force veteran when he retired in 2014. And was still at that age where he was like, I still got plenty of life ahead of me. What can I do next? And his family had always said he should own a restaurant. He said, I don't want a restaurant, like a full restaurant. And he remembered Green Beans Coffee when he was deployed in Afghanistan and Iraq, and started looking into the company and put together in about 2 weeks, put together a really copy paste business plan is how he put it. He's like, literally copy and pasted and, put my heart and soul into it because he loved what Green Beans stood for. And he sent that off to the brothers into the corporate office, and they said, we would be honored to have a veteran open one of our stores. So although we are under a name of Green Beans Coffee, we are 100% an independent LLC. So we own it outright. They are just kind of our mental support more than anything. And then of course our distributor, we get all of our coffee and all that stuff that is proprietary to us. That all comes from their warehouse. They've been integral in the success, just like the back end of it. Especially after, for those that don't know, we lost John January 2022 to COVID. He was only 52 years old, and it was just gut-wrenching, not only to our Green Beans family, but to this community, because that man did a lot for this community. Not only just our schools and the neighborhoods alone, but when it came to supporting the military and giving back to them. The whole reason John thought Green Beans would be perfect for him was because our tagline is honor first, coffee second. And so he loved that it was about honoring our military men and women so much more than it was about a hot cup of coffee. But he grew a pretty big community, and so I took over when he passed away as the operations manager, and brought on a new team manager at my Millard store and a new team manager at the Bellevue store. And I work side by side with Angela. She handles the community stuff and a few things there. I handle all the day-to-day operation stuff here at the cafe. And then, she's involved with all the community events and stuff because they have a 13-year-old daughter that she's, got to raise on her own now. And she's got a job that she loves. So it was an easy decision. I was actually supposed to move to Arkansas last October with my husband. We were going to move down there to do something different because we're both from here, been here our whole lives, and we've got good friends down there. And we were like, let's do something new. Our kids graduated, doing his own thing. Let's go do our own thing. And then a few months after John passed, Aaron and I made the decision that the right place to be was here. And it's probably the smartest and best decision I made. Never thought I'd pretty much be running my own business. Wasn't on my bucket list, but I am so happy that I chose to stay and I mean, I love this. We're just your typical little coffee shop cafe. If for those that don't know, we do all of our own baking in-house. So all of our pastries are made fresh by my team. We make all your food fresh to order. So it's not, we're not pulling burritos out of the freezer and popping them in a microwave. They're making them fresh for everybody. We're still very traditional. We hand tamp all of our shots, and steam all of our milk. So we're just the simple, very traditional coffee shop, with a few little quirks. Our biggest one being the Moac, which is named after the Moab, mother of all bombs. We have the mother of all coffees. And that is a 24-ounce coffee with 4 shots of espresso.
Wow.
I've been here 8 years and I've never tried it because I know how coffee affects me and nobody wants to be around that.
That's funny.
But yeah, so we're just a little community place, and that's what we're about. Is it sounds cliche, and I know there's younger generation that makes fun of it, but we really are a family. And John created that culture of your community, and the people you work with are a big part of who you are, and where you're going in the world. And so it's the people that you surround yourself with. And so he made it a commitment to build a community and not just a coffee shop, and he really did. And we have some of the 2020 proved that we have some of the most loyal and best customers.
Beautiful.
And majority of our employees are with me a year plus. Just kind of depends on their path, but a lot of them stick around all through high school. My manager at Millard is actually an employee that was with me in high school, graduated and got her degree from college, went on to be a teacher for a while, got really burnt out. And when John passed away, said, I want to be back with Green Beans because I know that they'll always have my back. So she's been back for almost a year now as my Millard store manager, and she doesn't regret leaving teaching at all. She's like, this is where I'm supposed to be. So that's literally what John built. John built this community that is just so supportive of each other. And I couldn't picture myself working for anybody else or working anywhere else, honestly.
How
It's not
beautiful.
easy work. It's exhausting. It's overwhelming sometimes. And as a lot of people in the service industry know, since COVID, it's become a whole nother world for us. And it's hard some days, but for the most part, it's one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever done.
Amber, I can just hear the passion in your expression, and the legacy that you're carrying on and living into that John started. How beautiful of a story. And that really is the foundation of a solid culture, a firm foundation that you referenced that other organizations are still trying to figure out, right? And you have so much to build upon there. How beautiful is that?
It breaks my heart every day, because when we get new employees, that they never get to learn what we learned from John. So we try very hard to instill who he was in all of the new employees that have come in since he's passed. It's just he built something special. We're just a small, tiny little place, but he built something that goes on forever. One of the stories that I think is really cool that I love to tell people is when he passed away, we went down for the luncheon at the church, and there was one table that was set up, and it was a beautiful letter from at least 10 other area local coffee shop owners. And they provided all the pastries for that luncheon that day. And just to see that, like, other coffee shops coming together for him and for our family was just like beyond touching. And I still have several of the owners and managers of other local places that, shoot me an email to say, hey, is there anything you need? How are you doing? Because they all know that in a very short amount of time, I had to step up and learn things that I've never done in my life. And so I have had a community that he built, ensuring that I was okay and ensuring that I could do what needed to be done, and constantly checking on the family. And it's just like, you don't get that at other places. You just don't. You don't see that. And I attribute a lot of that to what John built,
Beautiful.
and what he instilled in all of us. So
Beautiful.
I just think that's one of the coolest things.
Yeah, so building upon that, I'm curious, what kind of qualities or characteristics then do you look for when you're adding people to the team?
Um, we look for people that are looking, we don't necessarily say they need to be looking for a career, because we know a lot of them are high school and college kids. They're just looking for a paycheck. But we want people that care. You don't have to have the passion that myself and Angela and my managers have. You don't have to have that passion, but we want you to come to work and understand that you're coming to something that's bigger than you, that it's not just, you're not just handing out a cup of coffee. Some of I've noticed with some of our newer staff, because they're younger, they get that aha moment when they meet someone in the military for the first time that tells a story about when they were deployed, and at 15 minutes that they got to go sit in the green beans and have a hot cup of coffee and a pastry, get some AC, and hop on their phone and talk to a loved one. They hear those stories from somebody, and it's like a click in their head. So we like to look for people that not necessarily are going to turn this into a career, but that while they're here, understand that passion and understand that we're so much more than just a coffee shop. They're hard to come by, but then again, service industry employees are hard to come by as it is. But I've built such a strong leadership team that we teach them that, and we bring them to that. And you can, like I said, like I just said goodbye to one of my girls that's been with me for 2 years, and she had a strict schedule because of school, but she stuck by it because she's like, I like where I work. I like what they mean. I like, how helpful they are when I need time off, because it's, I'm in high school. And that's what we get is our people tend to be here. It's not like 3-4 months and they're out and looking for something different. They stick around for quite a while because they understand it's more than just a paycheck here.
Yeah.
And I love that.
That is the gift that you're giving them. You're giving them, many of them, their first experience, right? Work experience about what it can be, instead of going out there and discovering in places where it's not.
Yeah.
So that is a gift that you're giving them, is they also have almost a new standard of how business can be done when it's grounded and rooted in a firm foundation of cultural values, and being a part of something bigger than you, and living into that space. I'm curious about, you said you have a strong leadership team. What specifically do you feel like you do to invest in your leaders, and what does that look like?
One of the biggest things that we ensure is that I am meeting with my management team weekly. And a lot of times daily, I see them on a regular. Communication is huge here. It's key. You can't make it without communication, especially since we run food. We deal with product that expires. You have to have a strong communication and constantly informing people, and so one of the things that I ensure that I do is that I meet with my managers regularly, and my leadership staff regularly. And I make them a big part of decision making, and things like that, because ultimately that part of the store, the operations of the store, the day-to-day service part, that's theirs. That's their world. That's their home. So one of the things that I learned early on in my career, because I've been in customer service since I was 16, and that's all I've ever done, I learned very quickly what kind of manager I wanted to be and what kind I didn't want to be. I'm firm, and I'm steadfast in policies and procedures, but I'm also understand that we're all human, we're all people, and they shouldn't have to sacrifice their life for a job. I'm so key on that. Yes, your job's important when you're here, but when you're off, you're off. Go be off. Go enjoy your life. It's not your job. If you're not on the clock, it's not your job. It's my job. I'm the salary paid owner, operations manager. There's something that needs to be done when you're not on the clock, I'll handle it. Go have your life. So I just try to give them an idea that there's balance between everything. And then John instilled in me that if you're not happy or something's not making you happy, come sit down in my office so we can figure out what's going to make you happy. Whether it means that maybe this isn't the job for you, and we put a good reference letter together for you and help you find a new job that works for you. You know, this isn't for everybody. It's a great first job. It's a difficult first job for a 16-year-old. It's not an easy job. But I'm steadfast that if it's not right for you and there's something else out there for you, then let's get you successful and get you out there to that job. And I'm also a firm believer that my managers should be able to do everything that I do. So if I leave for any reason, they can take over without a problem.
Nice.
You know, you should always be training your leadership team to be able to take your job.
Nice. And not
Yeah,
be threatened by that. Oftentimes that's the piece that people misunderstand, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you're doing your job and you feel and you're successful at your job, you shouldn't be worried about somebody knowing your job and being just as good as you.
Yeah.
If you're still doing your job and doing a great job, you're not going to lose your job. But if someone is doing it better than you, then you should look in the mirror and double check yourself, because obviously, you know, but yeah, they should always be training your leaders to take your job. You really should, because you're not going to be in it necessarily forever. I want to retire at some point. There's got to be somebody out there that's got to be able to take over for me.
That's right.
And I don't want to spend 6 months of my retirement training a new person.
Love it. You mentioned earlier about it's just, always busy. And I'm just curious, I hear that a lot. It's crazy busy. Talk to us a bit about time mastery and self-mastery, and, what does that look like? What kind of discipline do you instill?
This is one of those types of jobs where there's always something to do. You're always busy. A lot of people, if you've never worked in food service, let alone a coffee shop, all of that stuff that they do for you requires prep, requires, portioning, requires a lot of pre-set stuff before we can even do any of the stuff for you. So for us on a day-to-day basis, it's a lot of downtime being prepping for your next rush, prepping for your next day, prepping for the what ifs. What if this happens? During a rush, these kids are literally like worker bees. They don't stop. Thank goodness they work very smooth because they work in stations. So they all have their station. They handle their station. They get through the rush. They get the drinks out, the food out, and then they move on. But literally, like, day to day is them cleaning, stocking, and prepping. That's their life, is cleaning, stocking, and prepping. And then your customer service in between. But the cool thing is they all know priority. No matter what they're doing, once they hear that door go off or that headset go off, that's their first priority. I am very keen in explaining to them that without customers, you don't have a job. So that bacon you're prepping for tomorrow morning, that's not important. There's a customer at your register. And they're really good at that. They're really good at knowing what is priority and prioritizing properly. Certain things need to be done faster than other things need to be done. Customers left your lobby, then somebody's out in that lobby cleaning that lobby as soon as someone left that table. So they work very well in knowing that what is priority. They definitely prioritize versus just putting a list together and going down the list. They are very good at prioritizing what is most important and then going from there. And my management staff, one of the biggest things I teach them is picking their battles. Is that one little spot that they missed wiping off the counter when they closed last night as important as the fact that they didn't stock any of the cups? What's more important? So they're really good at picking their battles, which you have to in this kind of industry. Because every day there's going to be something that pops up, because you've got 8 different employees that are all under the age of 20. They're going to make mistakes or forget to do something. And so patience is a huge key in this company, huge key. So.
And I can hear the learning environment that you have for them. Like, well, what did we learn, right? What can we do more effectively next time? Nice.
I've always been a why person. If I tell you to do something, it's got to have a why behind it. I'm not just going to say, go do this, because you're going to look at me like, well, why am I doing that? I'm going to tell you why you're doing it, especially if you ask. But 9 times out of 10, I'm always going to say, hey, we need to get this done, and this is why. And I think when you teach people the why as to why they're doing stuff, it becomes more of they feel a bigger part of it because they know why they're doing it. If you just tell people to do stuff and then you lead with that, and I've had one of these managers that does it because I'm the manager and I told you to.
Yeah.
Cool. That's not going to motivate your staff to get something done. They're not going to think it's that important. You're just power hungry. So teaching them the whys as to why they do what they do is really key.
Beautiful. it helps with their own critical thinking skill sets.
Mhm.
Then they pause, and instead of just waiting for somebody to tell them, they're actually growing and developing. That's beautiful.
They get less scared to ask questions too, because they know that you're going to give them an answer and not just like get annoyed with them.
Mhm.
And I see that a lot in these younger kids. They're afraid to ask questions because they get the side eyes or the big sighs or the even sometimes the defensive angry reply. And it's like they're just asking you why this is important to their job. It's not a hard question to answer. And if you don't have the answer, then it's obviously probably not important to their job and you just don't want to deal with it. But I'm also a firm believer that anything my staff does, I can do too. If I need to take out the trash because they're busy, I'm going to take out the trash.
Yeah.
If I need to mop up a mess in the lobby, then I'm going to mop up the mess. They are no less important than I am. Nobody is better than anybody else that they can't do the bathrooms. They can't take out trash. They can't clean up spills.
Mhm.
We're all equal.
Nice, nice. Well, what advice would you give another business owner as it relates to the financial management of a restaurant or a cafe?
Take a deep breath and don't be afraid to ask people for advice and for help. I knew nothing about the financial side of this business when John passed away. I did a little bit, like I knew how to do our deposits and our daily books and send payroll to our accountant, but I knew nothing about how it all worked. So learning cost of goods and learning labor and understanding labor, and we're almost 9 years into being open. So as you can imagine, equipment is starting to need a little help or need replaced. And so budgeting for that and making sure, hey, this is in my budget and I can still reach payroll. And this year's been really tough because minimum wage went up and then the cost of goods has all gone up. So now trying to make sure all of my staff is at the right pay that they deserve and should be at, but making sure that it's not going to, put a huge dent in, being able to make sure I can pay all the people and all that. I have had no problem paying a little extra to have phone conversations for an hour with my accountant on, please explain this to me. I don't know, thank God that we have an awesome local accountant who's a veteran, and his company who John has worked with almost since day one. They are so hands-on and so helpful and have been so patient this last year. Because Angela and I, Angela's, like I said, she's got a master's degree and she was going to school and working full-time and raising, and they had a daughter. And so she didn't work in the cafe much. She was very rarely here. I was here every day, but I ran the front of the house and made sure operations out there were going well, and was learning little bits and pieces throughout the time back here. And hindsight 2020, I'm now making sure my managers are learning this stuff with me. Because if anything, for God forbid, was to happen to me, we'd be, in trouble again because nobody would know what to do. But it's just, don't be afraid to have other people involved in that side of it so that you can get a second set of eyes looking at, hey, well, maybe if we cut here a little bit, or maybe if we did that, and we did, and I used my managers and we did price analysis and compared ourselves to other local or other coffee shops in our area, and made changes to our menu this year. And we removed stuff that just was costing us money and not making any money because it didn't sell, and made some changes to that, upped our prices. We're still cheaper than a lot of places in town, but we did up our prices, and all that stuff. But it's take your time, don't get panicked about it, and reach out and ask other people for advice or to look at it. Don't be afraid to do that. Don't be embarrassed if you're not 100% sure how to handle it. Trust me, I knew nothing last year at this time. I had no clue what I was doing. And I just reached out to the people that I knew we had in our community that could help me. And thank goodness, because it's probably what's keeping us, that help is keeping the business going.
Nice.
I honestly don't know if I could have done it without these people's help.
And oftentimes we don't know what we need to know, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a discovery process, no doubt. I'm just curious, if you were to give advice to your younger self, as you just think over the years and the skills that you've brought and all that you've learned, what advice would you give to your younger self, Amber?
Pay more attention to the little details. Because if you miss some of the little details, they become the big details. And it can make life a little more stressful. So it's those little details, and those little things are sometimes telling you things that you don't realize are going to be as big as you think. Learn to take notes and make yourself little to-do lists, because trust me, I didn't do that growing up, and I probably could have done a lot better in school. Now I have my to-do lists and my everything. Every day there's a new list, and I'm and I want it one thing at a time and prioritize it. But and then the last one would be, don't take everything so seriously or so personally. It's not that serious. It's okay when mistakes happen. It's okay if things aren't perfect. It's okay if something doesn't work the way you want it to work. It is really okay. It's not going to destroy your world. So stop thinking everything is so serious, because it's not. And I had a really big problem with that.
I love that. My guess is you're so self-aware about that. You're probably role modeling that really well for all people that you are involved with, which is a beautiful place to learn and grow.
I hope they're learning a little bit from me.
Oh, I'm sure they are. Is there anything else that would be helpful that you would love to share with anybody that's learning from us today?
It isn't always about the bottom line. It's not always about the money. I learned that from day one. John did not start this business for the money. He started it for what it represents. Money's money. I know we need it. It makes the world go round. But your family and yourself are more important than the bottom line. We actually, we always question that maybe the worry and anxiety John had was part of the reason that his body just didn't handle COVID well. It's because he was always worrying and always stressing about something. And he had said in the hospital, and it will stick with me forever, is that when I get out of here, I'm changing the way I do things because I need to live my life better. And Angela and I have made it our life's mission to enjoy this and to make sure we can keep it going, but not let it be the end all and the be all of who we are. One of the big things we've started doing that we started last year is we do the Miller Days Parade every year. And we used to just take the employees that weren't working that day, but we've started taking that day as an employee day. So we close down both the cafes. We all go to the parade together and enjoy ourselves. And then we have a big, huge picnic team event the rest of the day. And little things like that. When John passed, we were kind of short-staffed, and it was recognizing that I know we need to make money, but we're short-staffed and people are getting sick. Let's close down for the day and let people rest, mentally and physically rest. And it's just knowing that you and your family and those things are priority. Your job is your job, but it's not who you are. Don't let your job be who you are. Just enjoy it.
Yeah. I've heard you talk a lot about the being part of it as much as the doing part of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I agree with you. The results, the outcome, the financial piece, that is a result. It's an outcome when you focus on the other things first.
Yep. You can't run a successful business if you're burnt out and you're exhausted and you're mentally broken, or if you're at home with your family and you're struggling to keep that together because you're working all the time. You're not going to run a successful business because the rest of your life around you has got you bogged down. So, if you just remember that it's not the bottom line that matters. It's the people that you are involved with that matter, and the money will come. Better you treat your staff, the more money you make too. So
beautiful. Through and with others. Love that. And on that note, thank you for hosting some events that we have coming up. We've had a few there, and this week we'll be hosting another one. So look forward to seeing you then. And thank you for sharing your insights, your wisdom, your heart, your passion, and John and Angela's story that, you know, you're very much a part of as you play it forward.
Yes, they are definitely family, not just my bosses. They're my friends and my family. I've grown very close to that entire family.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It's been a
Of
gift.
course.